Hello, and welcome to Vision Denial and World Watch 2022. My name is Sam, and if those of you who are new here, I have watched every single playoff of 2022. Yes, every single one of them, even that one. Notably, this particular series we were covering the summer of 2022 on our anticipation and preparation for Worlds. And this you have stumbled upon, or you are a regular subscriber and watcher, to the Meet the Teams portion, where I will take a look at every 24 team, their strengths, weaknesses, playstyles, notable quirks, interesting things to look ahead, all in the attempts to at least teach some people who don't watch certain regions what to expect from their teams, or from the teams that are going. That said, there are two caveats to really put forward. First caveat: a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about are data-driven. I will put a link down below to the Google Docs of all of the data I have aggregated all in one nice spot. All of the data comes from the LoL fandom, Wikipedia, and from the goal.gg website, both of which have very different focuses to their data points, and both are necessary for these kinds of videos to work. That said, there's a limitation to some of this data because the LPL doesn't send their data as consistently as the other regions, and this is something you'll find with any particular data point for LoL esports globally. The LPL will still be missing some things regarding plates, drakes at 15 minutes, and heralds. A lot of their early game is not there. That and everything relating to vision. Second thing that I have to point out, a lot of the emerging regions, specifically Oceania, Turkey, Brazil, Latin America, and Japan, their teams will have some inflated stats in their favor. That being in mind, when we're looking at their stats, a lot of them will look good, notably the Chiefs and Detonation Focus Me. So some of the stats for every team has to be taken with a grain of salt of either being maybe stronger than expected or weaker than expected by quite a bit, notably because of this kind of inflation of statistics. When you're studying data, this is the kind of adjustments you need to do. That said, team-based data will look skewed. Individual data for each player's less so, because of the kinds of data points that they keep track of. All of that to say is that a lot of the notes that I've taken are using data points that have been collected that you can all enjoy for free down below, or in the various websites that I mentioned, but taking into account a lot of the personal notes that I use in conjunction with this data to show you what to expect with these teams. Without further ado, let's take a look at this video's team. I don't know. This is a pre-recorded message. Let's take a look. Let's meet Cloud9. Cloud9 is the first seed coming out of North America, but came in as the 5th seed in their LCS championship, being the 10th team to qualify after beating Evil Geniuses 3-1. Let's take a look at their coaches. Max Waldo and Zven both came into the head coaching positions at the beginning of the 2022 season, Max Waldo being the head of strategic coaching, while Zven being a translator in positional coaching. Cloud9 is an interesting case study in having a slow start to the season all the way to ramping up into the champions. They are a much more flexible team, but their stats, however, don't reflect a lot of hope for them. They don't fare as well in terms of statistics in terms of for like vision or wins ahead at 15 minutes, mostly because they're very below average for a lot of them. What they do make up, however, in very low statistical prowess, they do make up in very solid decision-making overall. They take every ounce of anything they have and punish mistakes, either forced or unforced, from their opponents to gain the momentum when necessary. There's a reason why their win rate overall is fairly high, even if their win rate at a head is not as savory as the rest of their contemporaries who were coming in as first seeds. Even taking into account a lot of the different teams who are from the emerging regions, Cloud9 is not an impressive looking team on paper, but just looking at their games and even looking at the ability for them to pull out wins from behind, this is an impressive team in terms of flexibility and adaptation. Let's meet Cloud9's top laner, Fudge. Fudge has been part of the organization since since the 2020 season, mostly focusing towards either the academy or the main roster in the top lane, coming from Oceania. Fudge here, amongst the stats, have a few notable exceptions in terms of his contemporaries, but looks average at most. And I do want to point out two specific things. His CS per minute is second, and his number of champs is second. Amongst his contemporaries, this is one of the most flexible, and given the champion pool that he tends to play with, it is wide and varied. And it's not, oh, he plays some one-off. Most of them he has played at least twice. And he has a large breadth of champions to work with. Not many does he over-focus on, and they range anywhere between very solid in terms of team fighting or side lane pressure. Anything for the team to function. And his high CS per minute probably reflects that he is usually much better at it when he's on split pushers, and the rest of his statistics are middling out due to the breadth of styles that his team allows him to play. This feeds into the flexible nature Cloud9 showed over the entirety of their playoffs and as well as their summer season in general. And so it is good to see that Fudge as a player tends to be middle, if not upper middle pack in terms of his contemporaries, but shows a lot more flexibility and a lot of ability to keep in gold with himself, as it will be necessary to show this kind of flexibility versus some of the more very specialized players in his role. Let's meet Cloud9's jungler, Blaber. Blaber's been a mainstay of the Cloud9 organization since the season of 2018, only coming in on the 2019 season or the end of the 2018 season for Cloud9's main roster. His mainstay in and of itself should be legendary, as Cloud9 has put in a lot of faith within this player. And the theming of flexibility keeps going. Having the second most amount of champions played amongst his contemporaries, tying with Zeus, and only losing out to Canyon in terms of that role, and having this, I believe here, the second most CS per minute. And this over here tells you a lot about the ways that some of these statistics can be skewed depending on which kind of team you're analyzing. And a team that's flexible like Cloud9, a lot of these particular stats are going to look very lower than average until you find these little factors that seem to pop out at you. And Blaber is another example within Cloud9 where his CS per minute indicates that he tends to do a lot of farming, but the rest of his gold per minute and everything else, kill participation, kill share, gold share, amongst the rest of his contemporaries seem low until you start to see the champions that he plays. And then you realize that a lot of them are either in high CS and some of them are very gold low economy. And with that kind of spread out, you should be expecting that, again, much more flexibility with Cloud9 to be able to adapt to their opponents. Let's meet Cloud9's mid laner. Many will recognize Jensen as previously being part of Team Liquid if you're an international fan, having rejoined Cloud9 once more for the summer season. And he's been a very consistent rock for the team. Amongst a lot of his stats, it's very much to be noted that a lot of mid laners are very solid this year. And the fact that he is very much in the middle for much of the stats going on is very good. A lot of these mid laners are flexible, have very good, consistent gold per minute, gold shares, kill participation, all in general. And this here is where a lot of the partial weaknesses that may come through. Jensen is an older player who is keeping up with the different mid laners around the world, but only just keeping up. And so it'll be very interesting to see if Jensen increases his champion pool or increases his ability to be flexible and is able to help continue this particular playstyle that Cloud9 offers. But let's not twist this particularly to think that Jensen is not going to be very proactive or is unable to keep up. He very much is. And as a matter of fact, he doesn't fall below half on any regard. In fact, hitting top 10 in many of the stats. And so we should keep in mind that even though he's not notable in any one given field compared to his contemporaries, he is keeping up and is able to provide the same kind of tools that allow the Cloud9 flexible playstyle. Let's meet Cloud9's bot laner, Berserker. Berserker's been a superstar since he joined Cloud9 at the start of the 2022 season, after having left the D1 Academy /Rookie/Challenger team. He has made a big splash within the scene, being incredibly consistent, holding a lot of what Cloud9 need as a player, giving him the bulk of the gold share and kill share for his team. He makes the most of what he can in assuring that a lot of these team fights result in a Cloud9 favored win. That said, Berserker here is amongst contemporaries in the bot lane who are incredibly stacked this year. Much like the mid lane, the bot lane has a lot of players with a variety of flexibility and focuses that Berserker might find some struggle against. And I say this primarily because even though his champion pool seems to match around the same as most other bot laners within this particular meta, he has a heavy front load of Zeri games. And then shortly after Sivir. Getting rid of those two games might show maybe some weakness. I doubt it would be technically a weakness, but it gives indication that as much as there's a lot of flexibility within Cloud9, Berserker himself has been very content and consistent at picking these two champs and working around the team fighting, which he does excel in. He's a strong and consistent asset for Cloud9 overall, but amongst other contemporaries, he does not shine amongst a sea of incredible talent. Let's meet Cloud9's support player. It's very interesting, mostly if you're an international fan who has not followed Cloud9, you would be surprised to see Zven in the support position, having opted to choose to take the support role in the summer season and allowing Berserker to come in as the main player for the bot lane. Zven has seen some success. As much as what the bot lane side has shown, everything is fairly middling pack, if not a little bit above average, but that the flexibility then takes a hit, in which Cloud9's flexibility seems to be very topside heavy. Zven overall has migrated to the role fairly easily, but it is a thing to come into Worlds as a freshly new support player coming in from an older role, all the way against many veterans in the position in a very stacked and flexible roster. Zven doesn't even account to being one of the more flexible support players in terms of champion pool, and given that the vision is middling pack for Cloud9, I'm hard-pressed to think that Zven is somebody that is to be noted outside of a very successful or another successful case of a bot laner going to the support position. He's mostly enabled Berserker to succeed, and given that he plays a lot of enchanters and occasional engages, it'll be very interesting to see if there's any adaptation coming into Worlds to widen the horizon of what the bot side can do. Overall, looking at Cloud9 is like looking at a team who mostly has a very solid idea and grasp on how they want to approach a game versus any given opponent, and will flexibly position to it, with the caveat that they have a bot lane that has a very narrow scope on what they've been consistent in. Not that they can't play anything else, but this is the most consistent that they're in. And Cloud9 is definitely the team that I have the most faith in being able to escape their groups. But looking at who they are up against in the likes of T1 and EDG, both teams who are incredibly solid in the early game and are nonstop aggression, I'm hard-pressed to think that they will, and leaving only then Fnatic possibly to come and face them, or in the alternative case Mad Lions, in which they would have a better chance. But I'm not solidly convinced that they'll make out of groups. But I am, however, interested in how they approach the drafting, which they've been nonstop consistently good at, and if their flexibility will show some nature of weaknesses the other teams have. That is the best avenue I can see Cloud9 escaping groups. And this is, honestly, probably the most solid team that we've sent in a while. One that's more consistent. It's just not convincing enough. But at least that's my thoughts regarding viewing the stats and everything else. What are your thoughts? I want to see them in the comments down below. If you want to see how Cloud9 made it to Worlds and all of the other North American LCS playoffs, I've got a video over here, as well as a playlist regarding every supercut ever, and as well as the set of videos for my journey across watching every single playoff, yes, including that one. And if you want to see any of the other teams or any other Meet the Teams, go right over here. I don't know if I pointed them in the right places. Editing me will be damned. With that, if you like this kind of video and this kind of content, leave a like and subscribe. I'll be doing more of these as Worlds go through. And thank you again so much for watching. I'll see you next time.